What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome to Jets Today, episode 57. It's the Mo Lewis episode tonight. And I'm here. I'm joined with James. James, how you doing tonight, my man?
Doing good, doing good. How's everything going with you?
Pretty good. We're wrapping up the school year on my end of things, and the kids
Nice.
are fried. They are totally done. It's a very common thing, like with the last like 2 weeks or so. The kids are just they don't care what I say anymore. All of my tricks are gone. The magic is faded, and they are ready for summer and ready for middle school.
Yeah.
All right. So for everybody that's joining us live right now, thank you for watching, and thank you guys so much for all the support. Go ahead and hit that like button right now if you haven't already. And if you're watching this after it airs, we appreciate you as well. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. And we're looking forward to tonight's topics. We've got a lot of things to discuss. And we'll go ahead and we'll actually skip the mailbag. I'm not skipping it entirely, but I want to skip it for now because OTAs are happening right now. And, there's been already, a few nuggets, thrown out there. Sauce is looking really good. I think Garrett Wilson limped off the field today, which is like, I don't want to hear anything about that. All of that's icky stuff. I don't want to hear anything about anybody limping anywhere. Anything that you heard the last couple of weeks, or excuse me, the last couple of days regarding OTAs that stood out to you?
Yeah, I kind of liked a little funny story there with Sauce using the oven mitts on his hands. I don't know if you saw that
I
at
did.
all.
Yeah.
Um, but he was using the oven mitts, and I mean it makes sense, right? I mean, if you don't have the ability to grab, I guess you put yourself in a spot where you're teaching yourself not to. And so I thought that was pretty cool. But outside of that, seems we get the completion numbers on Zach, how much it means. Probably nothing in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, probably the cool story from today was Sauce. Especially with the nickname rolling up with the oven mitts to OTAs.
Yes, that part's pretty cool. He locked up Berrios, what I heard, and that he was
Mhm.
talking smack, which is great to see. Like, maybe some people would say, let the rookies got to earn their spots or whatever. Got to come in quiet. I like
Mhm.
the fact that he's coming in there and competing right away, day one. Uh, and then we heard today from a couple of the beat reporters that Zach looked better today. Looked a little bit more in control, and I think his only
Yep.
incompletion in the 11 on 11s was an interception to linebacker Javin White. We will be talking about Zach Wilson tonight. Let's put on our
Mhm.
head coaching or just in general coaching caps. What would be the thing that you would be looking for in these OTAs? Because again, they are just glorified, scrimmages. They are like I said, 11
Mhm.
on 11, and they are just trying to, learn the offense. It's important that they play well in these practices, but what would you be looking for outside of them perfectly executing everything?
Yeah, I think two things stand out when you're at this point in the season or trying to prepare for the next season. And the first thing is communication, right? Because now you have some new bodies. Yeah, sure, you have some familiar faces, but you got to get Garrett Wilson up to speed. You got to get Jeremy Ruckert up to speed. You got to get Brees Hall up to speed. As a quarterback, you're the leader of the offense. Obviously, you want them to be the leader of the team, but offense specifically, you want Zach Wilson to be able to communicate if he sees something that someone's not doing correctly. It's not where he's being a tyrant, but more so he is communicating with them on what they need to be doing right, because that overall gives you as a coaching staff the confidence that he's understanding the offense. Because as a quarterback, you need to know what every other player on that field is doing. All 10 in front of you need to know their job. And then the second piece of that, right? So that's really just a more so chemistry, communication aspect with your teammates. While the play is going on, if you're Mike LaFleur, you want to see that Zach is getting better in his progression, right? He's looking at the right things. And maybe the throw isn't what you want it to be right now, but ultimately you want to see that improvement of, okay, last year he didn't do that, right? He didn't look to his second read, or, maybe on this play he wasn't as comfortable looking this way, whatever route combination it might be against a certain look. He's maybe checking it down a little bit more than he was, in, last season. That's just really trying to create habits there. And so probably the biggest thing for him, quarterback play wise, is just making sure that he understands where he needs to be looking at, in his progression at each play.
Yeah, and we will discuss, more in depth what we're looking for from Zach. But you nailed a lot of the things that I have, on my short list regarding that. Grant Rude, he is always quick to point out that he wants to see Zach improving in his fundamentals and his footwork specifically. And there was a little clip of a highlight of him throwing with a sidearm, a different angle, and
Yeah.
off platform, definitely off platform. And I could be wrong, and if I don't remember this correctly, let me know. I thought that when they had their scrimmage or their like practices with the Packers, one of the things that Aaron Rodgers kind of talked to um talked to Zach Wilson about was kind of using practice as a way to test things out, like to kind of test your abilities, to test your limits. Obviously, you need to practice proper fundamentals. You can't constantly be just off platform nonstop. But I do recall that being one of the things that we read and heard in some of the interviews. Why don't you talk real quick about um, some of that approach that Aaron Rodgers kind of talked to Zach Wilson about?
Yeah, so I think you need to break it down into two pieces, right? So, like, we saw Zach during the season, like skipping a swing pass, which is, uncharacteristic. Even if your fundamentals are a little bit off, usually, it's gonna get there. But I mean, I thought it was pretty uncharacteristic to really see any quarterback at that level bouncing passes like that. So, it was obviously fundamental mechanics, a little bit in his mind there.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to see him, execute when things are clean, right? And not get crazy. If the pocket's clean, just be smooth. In your mechanics, he'll work on that kind of stuff. And really, that's where you want to see, him be at his best, is when things in front of him are clean. The second piece of that is, there ain't a whole lot of times things are clean in the NFL, right? It's very rare that you're just going to be able to sit back there, have a cup of tea, and things are just going to go all gravy for you. So part of also what he's practicing is, when I get outside the pocket and things aren't desired, you're not in a desired position, can I still make that throw? Because the counter argument to that is, next year, if Zach gets in a position where he's got to roll out and make some kind of ridiculous throw and he can't do it, the criticism is going to be, hey, well, all these new age quarterbacks can make those sidearm throws, they can make those off platform throws, we need someone who can do that. And so he's really also working, his mechanics when things aren't great. And so, sure, the clean stuff takes precedence. You want to be able to hit all those, but you also want to be able to work on things when it's not all that pretty for you.
Yeah, and there's no way to know if that was like what was he that was excuse me, that's there's no way to know if that's what he was doing in that very specific play that we saw the highlight for. So there's certainly, you know, there's nothing wrong with pointing out that his fundamentals need to be cleaned up. We all can agree, I think,
Mhm.
that it wasn't clean at times last year. So I'm hopeful that that was more or less just him kind of testing things out, off platform. There was no pass rush. So the only
No.
reason why he would be throwing like that and kind of like it was almost like he was like he was spreading his
Yeah.
legs there, just kind of like opening himself up. And again, no rushers, no offensive linemen, just literally testing things out. That's how I saw it, at least. All right, let's get to our poll tonight, and our poll is asking you guys who's going to be the starting left tackle week 1 of the 2022 season. And it was a poll posted by NYJ Matt earlier in the week, and
Mhm.
I have been pretty firm on what I think will happen. And I think that it's going to be Fant on the left side, Becton on the right side. And I think that there's the possibility that Fant leaves after this season and they put Becton right back at left tackle. And they've shown the they're not afraid to move guys around on the offensive line, which is something that I'm still kind of adjusting to. I personally felt like it was best that you kind of establish, guys where they're going to play, but the Jets have
Mhm.
prioritized flexibility and being able to move around. So I see a scenario where Fant plays left, Mackay plays right, and then in the 2023 season, you put Becton back at left tackle. What are your thoughts? I know we've talked about this before. You had kind of said that there's a good shot that Becton does win left tackle. What do you think, though?
Yeah, so I've kind of been thinking about it because obviously I did see the Twitter stuff, and we're getting to that point where they got to decide how they're going to do it. Like my main thing is how do the Jets approach it, right? Because if you go, a competition at left tackle, and then the loser just after the first 2-3 weeks of training camp just automatically moves to the right, like the right side. Like, does that make any sense? I'm trying to figure out, like, they have to go into training camp with, okay, this guy's going to be our left tackle, right? Because I don't know, can you have that competition in training camp with only 3 weeks before the
No,
preseason game, and then all of a
no.
sudden it's August 25th, and they tell Makai Becton you're going to be our right tackle.
Mm-mm.
So then it kind of becomes, okay, George Fant. Yeah, I mean, listen, that was a like a diamond in the rough type of situation last year, I think, for the team, in terms of we saw him play right tackle. Maybe wasn't that great the year prior, and then he really excelled at left tackle. So do you stop that momentum that he has and you throw Becton at right tackle, where he's done it before, but probably hasn't in a long time? And he probably can still, because he does have the mobility to do that as well. He's just a overall big guy, and he's got the ability to move. If it's a power rusher, a speed rusher, whatever it is, teams kind of juggle who's in that left end type of spot, that right end type of spot. We've seen you see a guy like Von Miller on that side. You could see a guy like TJ Watt on that right side over the right tackle. So yeah, sure, the left tackle is the blind side, but sometimes you do have the best of the best on that right hand side that you have to block. So it really, to me, all comes down to how the Jets actually play this when camp goes. Because then, okay, if you start Mackay at left tackle in training camp and he doesn't look very good, right? Then it becomes, all right, we'll move Fant back over to left tackle. We'll try Mackay Becton at right tackle. Like, you're juggling in training camp. So I'm just kind of curious how they're actually going to, you know, employ this decision on how they ultimately come to who plays where.
I think it's a fascinating question to ask on top of the question that I asked, which is how are they going to make this determination? And I see some comments in here. A lot of people, most people right now are saying Becton should be, or excuse me, will be the left tackle starting in week 1. And I have to be clear, I don't care if I'm wrong, and if it ends up shaking out that way that Becton does so well in camp that he's the left tackle or named the left tackle, I'm good with it.
Mhm.
I'm fine. That is perfectly fine with me, and
Yeah.
it's definitely a situation where they can still be effective if that happens. Um, Now, the good question you just asked, how are they making this call? And I think that they probably already have like a notion of what they want to do or what they plan to do. And maybe that's one of the reasons why they are kind of hoping that Becton gets in here sooner rather than later. And I think the expectation right now is that he will be uh, coming for mandatory work.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
the question I have is when does that begin? But mandatory OTAs or mandatory minicamp, whatever you want to call it, he's going to be there as far as we understand right now. And maybe that's when they do it. Maybe they start to look at these guys more closely. They're going to get their hands and their eyes on Becton and be able to assess, where he's at.
Hmm.
Because it's not just is he in good shape, it's also how does he look on the field. It's
Yeah.
it's it's all of these things, and how does he look coming off of the injury? There's a lot to unpack there for sure. All right, we will go to our mailbag. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. And Zach needs a goatee. Any facial hair, I think any facial hair is a win for a quarterback, I feel like. Now, if Zach was a left-hand thrower, I could see. Oh, okay, I see. Putting Becton at right tackle. I think James kind of made a good point earlier. Like, you're going to see some really doggone good defensive ends on either side of the line. I was talking to my brother about it just this past weekend. Sure, the blind side is probably always going to be the most
Yeah.
coveted position, but that doesn't mean that right tackle or left tackle, if depending on whichever hand the quarterback is dominant in, I think it's really just damn below that line. Like, it's just as important. You've got to have solid offensive tackle play on both sides. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
kind of why that's where I'm at right now. I don't really care who wins. I just think that it should be Fant on the left and Becton on the right this season. And moving forward, that could change quite a bit. Um, all right, let's go to the first mailbag. We have two mailbags tonight, and this is an interesting one. And it's from Only Jets. And he says, knowing what we know now, would you rather have had Zach Wilson sit his rookie year instead of playing a la Trey Lance and several other quarterbacks in history? Most of them play nowadays. They don't usually sit. Aaron Rodgers sat. Chad Pennington sat. There's a bunch of guys that did sit and benefited from sitting. What do you say, James, to that? Knowing what we know, and I don't know if he means that in a negative way. Just now that we've seen him play for a year, what do you think?
No, I think you get the feet wet. I truly believe that. I mean, listen, you could sit there with a clipboard. I know it's worked out for certain guys, and there's no argument against that. But it also may not work out for other guys either. I think when you get a young guy in there, he's kind of now he has past experiences that he can work on in his second year. And so I'm of the mindset that you play. Sure, was it a kind of a crappy situation for him? What was around him? Yeah, of course. But we understood that coming in, that this coaching staff was their first time around. They had a ton of rookies and a lot of young players. They were shedding cap so that they can add, more veterans, come this year and have even more draft picks this year. So, I think it's good that they all grew together and Zach was a part of that. And they went through those struggles together. And, yeah, sure. Was a majority of it bad? You could probably say yes, for sure. But what does something like that Jacksonville game at the end of the year do for Zach? Right, just a game where they didn't have the head coach and he's throwing touchdowns to a left tackle. They're running around. They're having a good time. Or even the Tampa Bay game. I know they lost the game and it was kind of a heartbreaking fashion, but him throwing to Braxton Berrios in those type of situations and, getting that familiarity together and him knowing that, hey, it was my first year in this league. And, we went head to head with a really, really good team that made the playoffs. And I think though that kind of stuff is invaluable in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. And I'm going to go ahead and give a split answer. I actually would have preferred that the Jets had sat him for part of the season. And I know that that's like, not very common. If I were in charge, though, and if you're asking me, I would have probably sat him for the first half of the season, maybe a little bit less, and then get him out there. And that would be like twofold. Like, you want to be able to assess the team on the field
Mhm.
versus other football teams to see what's going on, and then also more time to learn. And it would be all kinds of things you could work on with that quarterback, uh, not having to focus so much on the game plan and things like that, and the play calls and getting those spit out in the huddle. You could work on a myriad of things, but at the end of the day, though, I'm definitely going to put him out there at some point in the season. So I would say probably, if you're asking me, first month to 2 months, I would sit him out and then go play. Because you're right, getting that experience and playing, good and bad, is invaluable. And I think that, again, we've seen enough circumstances where guys who play early are fine. They have to adapt and they have to learn. And it's sink or swim, man. It's the NFL. It's a tough it's a tough business to thrive in, but that's just the way of it. Michael Lando put in a cool comment. He says, "Can you imagine Becton and Tucker on a sweep with Brees Hall running behind them? Oh baby, yeah, that's kind of my vision right now, right? AVT is going to be the right guard, and if Becton's on the other
Yeah,
side, and if Becton and him stay healthy, that's that's why I'm so high on our running game and Brees Hall in general. I
yeah.
think that they can really do work on that right side." Okay. We've got one more mailbag, so it's a late evening. I actually posted the mailbag very late, I'm embarrassed to say. Um, so here is Grant Rude, and he put in a pretty good one. He says, "What leads to more wins, i.e., if one improves and the other doesn't?" So you can only pick one. One, coaching, game plan, halftime adjustments, game management, play calling, or two, player talent development, more consistent quarterback play, less drops from the wide receivers, more effective pass rush, and a general influx of talent. I think this one's hard to answer. I I want to pick both.
It is.
I just want to pick both. I kind of feel like they go hand in hand a little bit though, right? Like player,
Yeah.
what was the comment? Hold on, let me go back. So player talent development kind of goes hand in hand with coaching, I feel like. You're not going to
Mhm.
get that player development without them getting great coaching and great teaching. If I had to pick one right now, I guess I would say probably number two, right? Because we're such a young squad.
Yeah.
Having the quarterback play more consistently, having the players develop is crucial. If we were an established team right now, I would say probably the other one, coaching will matter the most because we're already an established football team. Any difference
Mhm.
of opinion there on that one, James?
No, I was gonna pick number two, and only because obviously the game plan and everything is super important. You got to put these guys in a position to win, but at the end of the day, when the ball snapped, the you know coaching kind of goes out the window. These guys got to be able to execute the plays like they're supposed to execute. They're not supposed to drop passes, and you need that more consistent quarterback play, and you need these guys to get after the quarterback, because at the end of the day, if the coach puts out the game plan and you can't execute it, then the game plan really at the end of the day is worth nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
I would take, I guess selfishly take the talent development also, because just in case like these guys, we find out that they're developing, on an excellent pace, and maybe it's the coaching that's holding them back. At least we know we have talented players, and maybe we could just find a new coach rather than having to find 53 new guys.
Yep. Interesting question nonetheless, Grant Rude. So I
Yep.
do appreciate it. We got to get to this one because I'm glad that Harry is here and that he put it in the chat. I knew somebody would comment on this, and I think you were with me on that one. Everybody was so wound up.
Yeah.
Everybody, and I'm proud of us for not hitting that panic button on what Olbrich said. Quite literally, if it had been, if 30 to 35 snaps was it, yeah, I guess you'd be concerned. But I felt like that was such a, I don't know how to put it other than that it was a poor explanation for their philosophy.
Hmm.
And Robert Saleh, I don't know if you saw him, his comments today. I think it was Boy Green. He put out a tweet with like a 2-minute segment, and it completely explains what they're really trying to do. And I think the way he explained it is Quinnen Williams is out there first down, second down, third down, and the offense converts. They're going to pull him off of the field for first and second down, and then they're going to put him back in for third down. And right there, that's 67% of the snaps in the first 6 plays of the game. And that's
Hmm.
fine. Like that's perfectly fine. I don't know what
Yep.
I don't know what the numbers were last year for all of the players, obviously, but if that's what they anticipate doing with the best of the best on the defensive line, I don't care. I don't care. It's perfectly fine, right? Like, do you agree with that? I think it was just so many people were so worried about it.
Yeah, I think we kind of got it right from the beginning there, that he just threw out a number and just completely lowballed it. And it was just kind of one of those situations where he was probably thinking about it afterwards, like, oh my God, I'm going to cause this stir because I just said the wrong number, kind of thing. And I'm glad the question got asked because, people wanted to know, the answer. And Salah, I guess, he very much cleared that up. And yeah, these guys, they want to be fresh. That's the reason why they've gone and got so many guys, even if they're depth guys. Just so they could be able to, get after that quarterback. But yes, main point is we need our best players on the field when there's a time crunch in a big time situation. So as long as that happens, then I'm good with however they decide to go about that.
Yeah, and I think having a guy that is like a Carl Lawson, if he's going to play most of the games this year, that's going to change the rotation a little bit too, because I think that if he's healthy, they will play him a good amount of snaps this season, especially down the stretch. I think he'll be on the field quite a bit if he proves that he can remain on the field. Grant Root said, nah, 30 to 35 defensive snaps is spot on for 70%. 3-and-outs all day. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah, I think that math is just tough sometimes. And I think Ulbrich, just like you said, just spit out a number that came to his mind. So we're going to move on from the 30 to 35 thing. It is dead and done in my book. So ground and pound part 2. I don't expect that, but I wouldn't be completely surprised if they really emphasize the running game this season.
Mhm.
Certainly could be the case with adding Laken Tomlinson and the tight ends that they added, obviously. All right, let's go ahead and let's get to our first topic of the night. And it's from a couple of days ago now, but the Jets are now going to be putting in 3 new players into the Ring of Honor. And obviously, you guys know the names: Nick Mangold, D'Brickashaw Ferguson, and Darrell Revis. They all 3, I think, very clearly deserve the honor.
Mhm.
And we have a pretty long list of players now in the Ring of Honor. I have the list, and I'm certainly not going to read it all. I'll just read a couple of noteworthy names. Weeb Eubank, he was the head coach for the New York Jets when they won the Super Bowl. Mark Gastineau. Larry Grantham was on the Super Bowl 3 team. Winston Hill, left offensive tackle, was also on the Super Bowl 3 team. Klecko, Martin, Maynard, Namath, McNeil, Jerry Philbin, a Super Bowl winner as well. Leon Hess was the owner. He's also in the list of players. Wayne Corbett, Kevin Mawai. Kevin Mawai is one of my favorite players of all time for the New York Jets.
Yep.
About time, and I think I don't know what the timing is. Like, how do they decide, and when do they decide? Because the Ring of Honor is pretty new. I think they just started it in 2010 or something like that. Like, this is a fairly new honor that the Jets have created, which is crazy to think because they're pretty, we've been around for a long time. And we're just now, having this, Ring of Honor. What are your thoughts just overall on the 3 guys that are going in? Anything that stuck out to you from their careers? It's obviously there's a bunch of things you could point out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, Mangold, among the best centers in the game while he was playing there. All pro, I believe 2009, 2010, back to back first team all pro. So, and he's a guy, and really all 3 of them, right? You kind of look back at when they were drafted, and you got 2 guys that were drafted in 2006 in the first round, and then you get the very next year your first round pick is Darrell Revis. So you want to talk about nailing drafts. Hopefully we see some of that happening again with Joe Douglas's draft picks. But D'Brickashaw Ferguson's a cool one. He's a Long Island native. He grew up probably about 15 minutes from where I'm from, so he went to
Wow.
Freeport High School, so that's pretty cool. He's a guy, and probably the thing obviously that sticks out the most about D'Brickashaw Ferguson is he missed 1 snap in his entire career, and it was because of a trick play. I think we all know that's that, which is really cool. For 10 years, we did not have to worry about who was playing left tackle, which is just a ridiculous thing. Not have to worry about as we sit here to try
Mm-hmm.
to figure out who's going to be our left tackle in September. So, and then Revis, I'll leave it as legitimately one of the best to ever do it in the game of football at the cornerback position. You can make an argument he's top 2. with Deion Sanders. You could probably make an argument he's one of the, he's the best corner ever, in my opinion, there, based on just him taking away half the field. So three guys that absolutely deserved it. And all three gave us, probably our last memory of the Jets being, a competitive, really good football team.
Exactly. I think that's the thing is like these three guys were a part of truly a I don't know if I can say the word era, but like this was a winning culture that the Jets had built. Although it was short lived, it was a very, very good, run there for a couple of seasons with these players. The thing that I wrote down just is like I don't know if specifically, Mangold and Brick are like the whoop, did we lose James? What the hell
Oh,
just happened? What
no,
the
I'm here.
hell?
Oh.
What the hell? Oh my lord, we gotta scramble here. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'm gonna fix this, everybody. Don't panic. Okay, nope, didn't fix it. Hold on, hang on. Camo. Hold on. I'm getting it. I got it. I don't know what just happened. Sorry.
I think I saw it. It looked like the unplug sign came up, so it looks like maybe your phone got unplugged.
Fun times. Anyway, what was I just saying? I think I was saying that, they were
The
part
era.
of just like a special time as for all of us, for Jets fans and for the players. They were really good. No problems. We've fixed it. It's always every week there has to be some sort of technical difficulty, or else it's not an episode of Jets Today. The play that I was going to mention here was the 4th and 1 versus the Chargers in the divisional round. Brick obviously is on that offensive line, Mangold, and it was that Thomas Jones right up the butt of Mangold and Faneca, I believe. And that just showed the dominance of that offensive line. We all know how good that offensive line was that
Yeah.
year. Number one defense in 2009. I think also like the number one running attack, right? Like we were the best at
Yep.
both. And Thomas Jones converted. And it just showed you how good and how much confidence Rex Ryan had in those guys up front to be able to just get that, that extra yard to finish the game off. Um, let's see here. Revis getting his ring with the Patriots is like Boggs and Clemens getting their rings with the Yankees. That still stings. I think everybody could agree with that. It definitely sucks that Revis didn't get a Super Bowl with us.
Yeah.
We were close. We were really, really
Twice.
close. Yes. It sucks though. And yes, you got to be happy for him. And then the
Mhm.
last thing I was going to throw out there was that graphic that we always see on Twitter with Darrell Revis, where he
Yeah.
held all those notable receivers under 35 yards. And there's a lot of basically like a lot of spoofs off of that image. Like a lot of people will put different players in there, but he truly shut down the best of the best week
Yep.
after week after week. And I think it's fair to say he's probably the greatest New York Jet of all time, as far as hitting like that really, really high level, that rare level of dominance. Were there players that did it longer? Yes, obviously. But
Right.
Revis was truly elite, the very best in the National Football League. And you said it best. He might even be the best cornerback in NFL history regarding, utter dominance. So all three of those players deserve it. Very, very happy for them. And I'm grateful that that I and that you guys, if you were able to, we got to watch them do what they did on the football field. All right. Now this is one's a little bit, off season flavor here, but what former players do you think are deserving of the Ring of Honor that have not been included as of yet? You can give me one, you can give me a million, whatever you want to do here, whatever you got. I got a couple here.
Yeah, I'll throw out one, and it's David Harris. David
Mm,
Harris for me. This is again, it's a Jets Ring of Honor. And David
yes.
Harris actually same draft as Darrell Revis. We picked Darrell Revis 14th, and then David Harris, 47th. And again, he was a guy that you could just legitimately count on every week in the middle of the defense. I believe he's fourth. What do I have it here? Fourth overall in solo tackles in New York Jets history. A little over 1,000 or 1,100 or so combined tackles, which is again up there with the tops of the Jets there. And we all have that memory of him, him getting run down after that interception of Tom
Yeah.
Brady in Foxborough in the playoffs. And just really a guy. And also, I mean, he had a good 35 sacks while he was here. So 10 seasons for the Jets. I think I actually wrote that down. So it placed him 14th in Jets history in sacks as a middle linebacker. So just a guy that was always around. A guy that you would want if you're looking, to set an example for the young guys that you want to bring through this franchise. David Harris is one of those guys that you would want them to look up to and say, oh, David Harris is 52, is up there in the Ring of Honor. Show him what he did, how he went about his business. Hopefully, maybe he can come back and share some stuff. Just a guy that I think is one of the best, recently for us that the Jets have had, and really kind of was a staple in the middle of that defense. So David Harris is a guy for me that I would one day like to see, and he at least deserves the consideration.
Yeah, you make a good point about it being the Jets Ring of Honor. These are not
Mhm.
necessarily going to be Hall of Famers in the National
Right.
Football League. They're just the best of the Jets. And for that reason, I actually have Sean Ellis
Mhm.
amongst some of my very much deserving players. The name that we're going to see a lot in the comments, and of course he deserves, Mo Lewis
Yeah.
very well could be the best linebacker in Jets history overall. Tons of sack production, tons of tackle production. He had like 1,200 total tackles in his NFL career. Nobody is going to deny Mo Lewis, and I think that we all kind of agree there. He was a great player on an era of Jets. Again, short lived, as far as being like close to being to a Super Bowl team, but he was one of the best players on those football teams. So I feel like, why should he not be in consideration as well? I have Sean Ellis. He is actually second all time in Jets history for sacks. I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't know that. I thought that he was, maybe like in the top 5. He's number
Mhm.
freaking 2. Sean
Yep.
Ellis is a really good football player for a long time. 566 total tackles, 16 passes defense, 13 forced fumbles, two-time Pro Bowler. Jets drafted him 12th overall, I believe, or 13th overall out of Tennessee. Just a really damn good football player. Never like elite, but like you said, a great Jet. And that's what this
Mhm.
is. It's great Jets. And he played with the Jets for a really long time. And this is also one of the names on my list. Christy Marie threw it in here. Mickey Schuler. He is the best Jets tight end, I think. I think that's pretty clear as far as like a career goes. I think he had over 5,000 receiving yards in his career, just under 500 receptions. He had 86 games in a row consecutively with a reception. So this was like a very key part of their offense for a really long time. Any other players that you have that should be in consideration for the Ring of Honor? If not now, then maybe in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I had Mo Lewis down also, but
Mm-hmm.
I really tried to keep it to like the guys that I watched. Like, I mean, I was 12 when Mo Lewis retired. So like, although basically he got drafted in 1991, and that's when I was born in 1991. So um, I really like didn't, I know of like I know Mo Lewis, and all the stories and stuff like that, but nothing really like for me to remember sitting down and watching and stuff like that. So David Harris for me is like my big my big, and I think I've actually mentioned it before. He's probably up there as maybe one or two favorite Jets for me. So and then, quite honestly, there haven't been many others. The other three already are getting inducted this year. So,
Mm-hmm. You're so damn young. All right. I have Victor Green on here. I think Victor Green, along with Mo Lewis,
yeah.
I think that Victor Green was named part of like the Jets all-time team or whatever. I think Victor Green is the defensive version of Wayne Corbett. He's really no different. He had a great football career, and he played for a really long time with the Jets at a very very high level, continuously improved. Um, so yeah, I think Victor Green is slept on by so many people as far as being a deserving player to go in the Ring of Honor. I actually have an interview with him on the channel. If you guys who are watching this don't realize that, there is Very much so. A full like 40, I think it was like 30 to 40-minute interview with Victor Green. Check that out. Got to talk to him a little bit, talk his career. And he has an awesome foundation. So I'm going to pub him on that. The Victor Green Foundation is a legit thing. Find it on the internet and donate because he supports children who are underprivileged. I believe I want to say Georgia, but it could be more than that. It could be more than that area. I'm not exactly sure. Aaron Glenn is thrown into the chat. Kyle Clifton, a linebacker as well. And then, oh, I'm sorry. I already said, I was going to say Victor Green again. Second Wave sends in a super chat. Thank you for that support, Second Wave. Kevin Mawai is one of my favorites, but he's already in the Ring of Honor. He is already included in that, that elite group of Jets players. So,
yep.
All right, we're going to move. Too. Say again.
Hall of Famer too.
He has all the accolades. He deserves all of them, and he was just such a damn good football player. If you watched during his era, if you're watching the channel, he and Zach Thomas, they talk a lot about each other. Zach Thomas is a linebacker for the Dolphins. Yeah. Some of the best, games were watching the Dolphins and the Jets during that time period. They were very, very competitive, and Kevin was just so freaking good. He's one of my favorite players. I think he's one of the best. We have another comment, and then we'll move on to the next one. Jets Carpetbagger, he says, stale news question. He says, how do you feel about the Marcus May exit from the Jets? He says, I'm thrilled. I don't think he added to the team culture or defensive synergy when he was on the football field. I think this one comes down to, I think he's a decent football player. I think that other teams in the NFL clearly value him. I just think that the Jets weren't prepared to pay him what he ended up getting. And he was at the point in his career where he needed to get a long-term contract. He could not afford to wait any longer. He had to get paid. He's already, I think, going to be 29 this football season. I think he's a decent football player. I think he's a pretty good leader as well. Having said that, though, I think it's fine that the Jets let him go because I don't think that we needed to spend big bucks on a safety. What are your real quick thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I love Marcus May as a player. I think it was just circumstance, right? I mean, Jets were headed in a direction where they didn't want to pay, a sizable amount of money to a guy that's going to be 29 and ultimately also tore his Achilles this past year. So, so I think it was more so circumstance. If he was, of normal age of his draft class, he got drafted in, I think he was like 24 already or whatever it was. If he was 25 right now and he didn't have that Achilles injury, I think ultimately he's probably on this team for another 4 years at least. But circumstance kind of led them different directions.
And Antonio Cromartie's vasectomy should be in the Ring of Honor. That's a pretty funny one. All right, we'll move on. So Zach Wilson, his second year. A lot of people are trying to figure out what the leap should look like in, statistical, stats, whatever you want to say. It's kind of hard to delineate what is realistic, what is fair, what is a good expectation, what is not a good expectation. So I thought we would just do like a tangible versus intangible expectations for Zach Wilson. Tangible would be more or less things that you can look at and say, okay, here are some numbers, and these are some things that I want to see on the football field. Intangible, those are things that are going to be a little bit more, not as noticeable on the football field. So what do you think? You can give me a little bit, you can give me a lot of it, all of whatever you want to do as far as, going over this.
Yeah, I think the number one tangible thing that we have to see, I'd love to see an increase in completion percentage, right? Get the ball to these guys, whether it's short, wherever it might be, because ultimately now you do have some guys who can make plays with the ball in their hands. And so it doesn't have to be overly elaborate to get them the ball. He just got to get them there. And so I think, touchdowns and yards, I know he obviously, I think it was like 9 passing touchdowns last year, right? Mm-hmm. He's that number has to jump up because they have to score more points. That's just like an inevitability type of thing. If it doesn't, we're in a whole heck of a lot of trouble. But I think he also had, it was like 6 passes or so that got stopped at the 1 yard line last year, which seems relatively high and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate for his statistical numbers. Because if he's at that 15 touchdown mark, then let's say all those went into the end zone. If he's at 15 touchdowns and then he ran for like another 3 or whatever, things are a lot different statistical wise, and probably how people view him, even though realistically it's just a half yard or different. So I think tangible wise, it's got to be completion percentage because we've seen obviously the Mike White game. He just got the ball out to the guys and they did what they needed to do after the catch. Short, middle, not too much was deep, but that'll be a piece that Zach adds to this offense, and it's really got to be for me that completion percentage. This way they can get the ball in these guys' hands, make plays, score points, get first downs, move the chains on offense. It has to happen.
Okay. Yeah, and I have a lot of what you just said. I said completion percentage has got to go up, accuracy overall. I think it's completely fair to say he needs to be very, very close to 60% completion percentage. I know that Harry W said he should be at 65. That would be a
That's
massive, massive jump. It
mhm.
would be a jump that I don't know if we've ever even seen that big of a jump from year one to year two in NFL history. I'm sure maybe it's happened. I don't know, but it's super rare.
Mhm.
So right now I'm saying 60%. I'm like really excited. Um, Obviously 60% over his career is probably not going to be good enough. Back in my day, early days of watching football, that was kind of like a decent mark, 60% to 65%, but the NFL game has changed and you really do want them in that 65 to 70% range over the course of their career, which is insane. But it's true. I think that that's kind of what Harry W is thinking, is that eventually it needs to be 65. So anyway, 60% for me year two is
Yeah.
it's even that would be a pretty big jump. Getting from what he had year one to year two, that would still be a pretty big jump. I'm sticking with it though. I think 60% is fair. You said something about getting the ball out quicker, like Mike White. Certainly not all of this is on Zach Wilson, so don't take it the wrong way, comment section. But he's got to take less sacks, and part of it is on him. 44 sacks. He got sacked 44 times last year, and it's not just eliminating those negative plays, but it's also preventing him from getting hit. So for those things, that's another tangible that I have written down. And then the last one, playing all 17 football games. I know it's hard, we don't know what's going to happen. Injuries happen,
Yeah.
but for a quarterback, they really should be able to play nearly all of the football games. Obviously, could he get hurt? Yes, and it would be unfortunate if he did. But I really want to see him play all 17. When's the last time? And I think this would be an interesting stat. And if anybody wants to find out, when was the last time a New York Jet played all of the games on the schedule? I would love to know. Do you know? You don't know, do you?
I, my guess is probably going to be Fitzpatrick in 2015,
15.
right?
Yeah,
Whatever,
yeah,
whatever year it was that Decker and Marshall and we had
yeah.
that disaster in week 17.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Edward Stewart saying Fitz. And then I'm wondering even beyond that, when was the last time it happened before Fitzy? I didn't think about Fitz, but when was the last time it happened before that? Uh,
Maybe, maybe
not,
Sanchez. Did Sanchez do it his rookie year? Maybe.
yeah, maybe his rookie year. So anyway, long story short, we need to start having our quarterback remaining healthy. So 17 games
Yeah.
is my other tangible expectation for Zach Wilson. If he plays 16 games, am I going to lose my mind? No. It would just be nice if he played most of the football games, though. All right. Intangible time. These are the
Yeah.
things that are not as apparent when you're watching it on Sundays. What do you think for intangible expectations for year two?
Yeah. So, as cliche as this sounds, like personality wise, right? To me, that's an intangible aspect of his game. because football is more than just Sunday from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Um, he just be you, right? Just be yourself. He's clearly gone out of his way this offseason to be with certain guys off the field, right? Whether they're playing, whatever that game is where you try to guess the guy, you got the thing on the top of your head. I forgot what it's called, Pictionary or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's it's like headbands or something.
Yeah, and it says, yeah, just like stuff like stuff like that. That off season stuff, like I wrote in my in my notes. Love the off the field stuff right now, right? Because
Yeah.
all that stuff factors into all of a sudden it's the dead heat of August, and it's the ninth hour of the day. You're either in the film room, you're back on the field, you're in the weight room, all that stuff, that chemistry, that personality, the laughs and all that kind of stuff, that kind of gets you through some of the hard times of the season. And so, off the field, outside of football, he needs to be Zach Wilson. Clearly the guys like him. Braxton Berrios seems to be kind of his buddy type of deal there. They seem to be really close friends, which is really cool. And, Dan Feeney's got the whole mullet and, everything going on there. And then really intangibly, on the sideline matters, right? Communications on the sideline with his coaches, with his players, not being afraid to speak up if he sees something that he really likes or something that he doesn't like at all. And then, communication on field, pre-snap, all that stuff is important. Obviously depends on how much leeway he's actually given, to make certain adjustments, and, whether or not he has a check with me on a play. A check with me is basically just, hey, maybe we called a run to one side. Actually, we're going to run it now to the other side. Certain things of that nature. I'm sure he has a free reign of a lot of different things, but it's putting, his team in the best position that they could be in offensively pre-snap. So communication, personality, just being yourself, having that infectious, you kind of see, right? Like last week I turned on the TV and Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes are, playing golf together, a 2-on-2. And, they're just having a great time, personality wise, who's laughing, who's making jokes. You want to be able to do that kind of stuff with your teammates as well. All that kind of stuff matters going into year two as he tries to take over this football team.
Yeah, that's important. And just, I don't want to repeat too much of what you said. The first thing that, is on my list is vocal leadership, and it doesn't need to be rah-rah stuff, but holding other players accountable on Sunday. That's something that I wanted to see more of out of Sam. And I don't want to change my expectations just because Zach is the current quarterback. I want him to become the guy in charge. And it's a high expectation for a second year quarterback, but it is what it is. He's got to start making those moves as a quarterback. He has to be able to command the offense and command the players that are around them. And if somebody does something wrong, I want to see him pulling a guy in and saying, look, no, this is how I want you to do it. This is what I expect you to do, blah, 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 blah. And then the other thing is playing loose. I feel like we talked about it earlier. He certainly had fundamental issues, but you had mentioned, like, even if your fundamentals are out of whack, like, you should be able to kind of like throw a 5-yard, whatever. I don't know how many yards it was, but like those little dump off passes for an NFL quarterback should not be that hard. And that's, if we want to be critical, that's one thing I say, like, that's got to probably be in the past. Yes. Got to be able to make those plays and just play loose. I think that's kind of part of the problem, is that he lost a little bit of that swagger. Play with swagger, play loose, play freely. And that's going to come with time. The more comfortable he gets, the less thinking he has to do. He will be able to do that. And that's kind of why, that's on my intangibles list, is just want to see him playing more freely. That's really what it is. And if he does that, I think he's going to be very dangerous. So,
yep.
All right. Good stuff. We will move along here. And this was a topic from last week, actually. So I pushed it forward. It's make the case that the Jets could start the season 2-2. Let me actually go back, because I didn't read any of these comments, and I need to do a better job of that. So let me go to some of these. Let me go to some of these Zach comments, and then we'll move forward here. This is from Michael Lando. And he says if Zach plays the way he played at Tampa Bay, we could be this year's Bengals team from last year. They came out of nowhere. He obviously looked, his best, making tough throws and converting in third down situations in that Tampa Bay game. Obviously playing a really good squad. Yeah, if he plays like that all season long, I think he's going to have a very good year. No doubt about it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. Blunted Vegas says, I think the run game will be primarily our offense, and Zach will be taking a few deep shots every game, kind of like the 49ers and Garoppolo. If that ends up being the case, I'm fine with it. And I think a lot of people will be okay with that if Zach's not, going absolutely berserk stat-wise. Good football teams do not have to have that. You don't have to have your quarterback slinging it all over the yard to be able to get into, that final four and the final two even. This is a really, some people are going to read this and get turned off. I actually love this. Treat Zach like a baby and he's going to be a baby. Jets threw him into the furnace last year. He'll be way better this year for it. And it says, or he's at risk for being gone next year. So there's definitely something to this. Like if you talk to your child, ooh, boo boo ba ba, you like all making all these little noises, they're going to do the same thing right back to you. If you want your child to talk like a person eventually, you should talk to them like a person. Same thing with Zachy Boy. You want him to be an NFL quarterback, treat him like an NFL quarterback. And the good news is, and you made this point, and I listened to Chris Sims quite a bit. He talked about it. The Jets asked the most out of Zach Wilson, out of all of the rookie quarterbacks that played last year. And it was in reads. It was in, the difficulty of his throws, the progressions that he was asked to make. So for that reason, we should be happy. I think that there's something to that, the fact that they didn't put training wheels on him. They put him on a bike and they said, figure it the F out. And I think that's good. I think that's really good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I don't think we have any more. So we'll go on. Can the Jets start the season 2-2, make the case for 2-2? Some people seem to think that if we can go 2-2, we have a really good shot at pushing down the road in the 2022 season for for sure being in the hunt, right? Like we'll be on that little graphic that everybody's dying to see our team on. Make the case 2-2. How can we do it?
Yeah, so the two game. I think week 4 against the Steelers, we have, that's a game that it's gonna wind up being a game where you look at early season, it's got to be almost a must win, right? If Kenny Pickett's playing quarterback for the Steelers in week 4, the defense has to take advantage of that. Confuse them. We always have the young quarterbacks that are confused. It's time to confuse another young quarterback from another team there. And, hopefully, obviously you got TJ Watt and things of that nature on the other side, Minkah Fitzpatrick. But, you take care of the football, you run the football, and you force Kenny Pickett into making mistakes if he is in fact the quarterback for the Steelers, then I think you could come away with a win. So you got a win right there. And their offensive line wasn't great last year. I know Big Ben had like cement feet, but ultimately their offensive line wasn't great. Najee Harris had, numbers and things of that nature, but not necessarily, he got so many carries that those stats almost seemed inevitable. And not to bash him or anything, he's going to be a really good running back in this league, but there wasn't a lot open for him, and he really kind of made the most out of his opportunities there. So I think week 4, I think it's a must win. So I can really see the Jets winning week 4 against the Steelers there. The other one is, obviously there's one player that's a pretty hot topic in the news for all really the wrong reasons, and that's Deshaun Watson. You would hope, that he's not around week 2. Obviously there's a really good argument you could make that he shouldn't be seeing a football field for a really long time. And so week 2 there, can you take advantage of Deshaun Watson not being the quarterback of the Steelers and of the Browns, and maybe you get a week 2 matchup with a guy like Jacoby Brissett? Now the Browns have a very talented rest of the roster, but again, you got to take advantage of these lower level quarterbacks you know, that you might be playing against. You know, it's going to be tough against Lamar Jackson. It's going to be tough against Joe Burrow. But if you can get in the first 2 weeks, you get a matchup of a Jacoby Brissett and a Kenny Pickett. That's the argument that I think is well suited for this team can wind up getting out of the AFC North 2-2.
Anything is possible. We're seeing, a great job, by the way. And I completely agree with you on everything that you just said. I don't want to go ahead and talk about the Browns or the Steelers because you said it best. That was perfect. And that's the path, right? Like that's the one that you can look to and say like, okay, you better win that Steelers game. Even if we don't win another single game, if we go 0-4, we're in deep shit. We are just in a world of hurt if we go 0-4. So you better win that Steelers game, and that's at home too. It's not, no, it is in Pittsburgh, isn't it? That's in Pittsburgh.
I believe
Sucks.
it's in Pittsburgh.
I was gonna say if you're at home and you're
Yeah.
playing the Steelers, you better win that one. But on the road, that makes it a little bit tricky. But anyway, some people believe that we can beat the Ravens. Certainly, anything is possible. But right now, I'm still questionable on how we are going to stop their running game. And maybe that's because I'm thinking back to the 2021 season and how bad we struggled to stop the run. That's actually one of the next topics is the running game and how we're going to slow it down. So I don't want to go ad nauseum and talk about it now and later, but that's a big concern for me going into week 1 is the Ravens might not need to do a lot of throwing. They could pretty simply just, line up and just play legitimate Rex Ryan football. They could blitz Zach Wilson. They can get very aggressive defensively with their strong secondary, and then they can just really get physical on the offensive side of the football. So I get worried about that game, and I'm going to that football game, and I want to see us win, but I'm certainly not counting my eggs before they hatch there. So anyway, yeah, and we played the Bengals last year, obviously at home, and I'm pretty sure that one's at home. I think is Mangold getting inducted into the Ring of Honor that game? I think he might be actually.
Oh, is he opening day?
No. Versus the Bengals, I believe he is getting the go
versus
ahead
the Bengals.
Okay, yeah, so maybe there'll be some extra juice in the stadium, and we obviously played them very tough last year. Anything's possible. I still think that the Bengals could have some regression. I know that Burrow is a stud, and I'm not doubting that, but they could have some regression in 2022. So that would be my other thing that I kind of throw out there is that maybe the Bengals kind of slow their roll just a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to be terrible or anything like that. All right. We'll go to another topic here, and this is one that's interesting because some news came out a couple of hours ago that Mims was not there for the voluntary practices the last 2 days, 3 days, whatever it was. I don't want to jump to conclusions because he may have a reason. He could have a reason for not being there. It could be personal, and we might not know that information. So I don't want to jump to conclusions that he's a jerk and that he's missing OTAs and he should be there, blah, 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 blah. But he's not in the same boat as Becton as far as having a child. And, there was rumors that, the Jets are going to be keeping their ears close to the phone for a trade. And it was a little bit more of a discussion last week, but I'll still ask you anyway. Would you be willing to trade Denzel Mims before training camp? So I guess the idea is that if we get to camp, he would be more likely to get cut than to be like traded like after, training camp has happened. So would you be willing to do it before training camp? And if so, what would you want in compensation back for him?
So I wouldn't trade him before training camp. And I think reason one is realistically at that point, what are you going to get? It's probably going to be almost close to nothing. It could legitimately be as low as like a compensatory pick or a conditional pick, a conditional later round pick that maybe turns into something, maybe turns into a sixth. It legitimately could be that low based on him last year, and now you're getting rid of him obviously, before he's had a chance to maybe redeem himself in some form or fashion. But I think with the receiving group that they have here, I think he's a good candidate to be that fourth or fifth guy. Yeah, that hopefully he's not hopefully he's not eating salmon at the same place he did last year.
7-Eleven salmon.
Yeah, no, that'll do it. That'll probably do it to you for sure. Um, but yeah, no. So I just think value wise, the pick isn't as great a value as potentially finding out that he just had a really bad year and now he's adjusted and he could be that fourth or fifth guy in the rotation. You can get him in, big bodied guy. Maybe you can get him some red zone targets, etc. Just some way I think he could. I'd rather take the chance and find out that he might be actually valuable on the football field rather than walking away and grabbing a conditional 6th-round pick.
Yeah, we don't disagree. We don't disagree often, but this one we agree on. I would not trade him before training camp. I think it's best that they assess him.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do anything, if you're going to trade him, at least let him come to camp, compete, and see what you've got. Really get a good grasp on what kind of work did he do in the off season, specifically, with the playbook and understanding all of the roles that he needs to be able to play. If it gets to that point, trade him. Obviously, you can get whatever you want, but I think that it would be a mistake to trade him before camp. And personally, I think he's going to make the team. I think that I would be pretty surprised if he's not on the 53-man roster. Clearly, anything can happen, but right now, I'm pretty comfortable saying I think that Denzel Mims will be on this roster. That was a funny comment. It's not because it's salmon. It's because it's 7-Eleven salmon. That just had me laughing a little bit. Jupacabra, he says the Ravens are a tough matchup for the Jets because they will force us to stop the run. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like somebody had mentioned earlier, why all this love for the Ravens? Well, number one, they're just a really damn good franchise. They have been a really good franchise for a good long time now. So they deserve respect for that, let alone excuse me. And then when you talk about them getting some of their players back, they were very, very injured, potentially even worse than the Jets last year. They were ravaged with injuries. They were destroyed. So I saw a comment talking about how they went on this really bad losing streak. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they did. They did go on a losing streak, but they were devastated. And theirs were clustered. They had like specific position groups suffer numerous injuries. So they were just completely depleted at some very key positions. And they're just good, man. I mean, Lamar Jackson's a really good quarterback. I don't, if you say that he's not a great thrower, I can listen to that and I won't completely disagree, but he's a weapon and he is difficult to stop. He is hard to limit. The last time the Jets played him, and it was a couple of years ago, the guy went off. He had like 5 touchdowns. So
yep,
we should humble ourselves, as fans before we play these Ravens. They're a really good squad, and they have a really good head coach. They have a very good head coach too. So that's what I think on the Ravens front. And maybe I'm regretting it buying those tickets.
There'll be hope. It'll be fun pregame.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's every game that I went to last year. It was so much fun pregame. The Broncos game, the Patriots game was an absolute blast. Lamar is a situation.
Yeah, he's a big problem. Big time problem.
Yeah, like again, like is he ever going to be Peyton Manning, Tom Brady? No, he will not.
No.
He will not be, but he's really quite explosive. And again, it's not just the running. I'm not saying explosive just because he's a runner. He is such a threat as a runner that he is able to burn you with his arm. It may not be at the consistent rate of some of these other pocket passers. I don't sleep on him at all. All right, let's move on. We'll go to our next topic, and it's a very timely one. Will the Jets have a better run defense in 2022? Hard to think that they won't improve. I guess my question though is in what ways can we count on them being better and playing sounder defense up front. Let me get to a couple of comments before we move to that. Lamar can throw 50 yards passes on his knees. I saw that. I think a lot of, if I'm being honest with you, I think most quarterbacks with a strong arm can do that.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm not knocking you, Christy, by any means, but I think that that's just like kind of silly. Like Kyle Bowler was a Ravens quarterback a long time ago, and he was a first round pick, and he famously or infamously was throwing passes like that when he got worked out by the Ravens. So yeah, Lamar's got a strong arm, but anyway, um, I'm getting sidetracked here. The Ravens were depleted starting week 1, and this is from Aaron Butler. He says, um, and the last 6 were even more depleted, and Lamar was out for those games. All of them were 4 points or less. Yes, and I believe Aaron's a Ravens fan, so I appreciate you coming in here. All right, back to the run defense. What do you think, James? What are some of the reasons we can count on them being, more consistent stopping the run?
Well, two names for at least right now across the defensive line is Carl Lawson. I mean, obviously we know his pass rushing ability. He's going to be able to help in the run game, and probably the other name that you could throw out there, and I think we talked about this before with Jermaine Johnson is, maybe it doesn't, the pass rush doesn't click for him right away, but the best part of his game, or at least in my opinion, and it seemed to be pretty, I think a lot of people thought the same, or at least close to it, was his ability to be really effective in the run game to set the edge at Florida State. Stuff like that, in my opinion, is going to translate quicker than potentially figuring out how to beat NFL type tackles in pass rush moves, to be more savvy in that department there. So I think Jermaine Johnson is going to absolutely help. Carl Lawson's going to help. Quinnen Williams on the interior. The big question is the interior, right? It's really Quinnen Williams, and can Sheldon Rankins have a better year? Does having the two better edge guys, or I guess for now, obviously Carl Lawson was better than anyone we had on the edge last year, but does Sheldon Rankins have a better year? What does Vinny Curry provide for us? But
Great question with Vinny Curry.
realistically, it is going to come down to, did the Jets put themselves in a little bit of a bind, not really addressing the linebacker position for one, and then also that interior of the defensive line? Now, I don't know if you saw Connor Rogers put out a tweet not that long ago, maybe just an hour or so before, before 7 o'clock here, that the Jets may be looking to put Michael Clemens on the inside a little bit also, and have him almost be like a John Franklin Myers, where you can play him inside and you can play him outside. I mean, he's got a nasty streak to him. So can he compete on that inside? I guess it's possible, but it could also be for a different type of situations there. So can the Jets' run defense be better? I mean, they have to be better, but they're going to have to rely on some new faces. And I think the big name is Sheldon Rankins, what he could provide on the inside. Obviously, we know CJ Mosley there, but Nasruddin and if Jamie Sherwood comes back, they did struggle in the run game a little bit last year. They're smaller linebackers that it's easy to get sucked up in in that second level, when that guard gets to the second level, whatever it might be. But I think they're still going to struggle in the run game. I think that's going to be definitely something that we're going to be upset about while the season's going on. But hopefully some of the new names can help them be just a little bit better, to where teams aren't just running it down the throat, and the new secondary that we just put together doesn't get really as much work, because they're teams aren't really in passing situations because of how the run game sets them up. So I think it's going to be difficult. This is probably my area of least optimism that I have all around, just because it didn't seem like they did a whole lot to improve it, even if we are getting Carl Lawson back, and they did draft a player like Jermaine Johnson.
Good points. I think you make great points about those two players, Nasruddin and Sherwood. If we can get something out of them in the department of helping to stop the run, I think that's going to go a long, long way. Um, we talk about, Ogunjobi. He's not really a run stopper, so even if we add him, he's not going to necessarily help in that regard. I think it's good that you're honest about it, and I think that my one optimistic look on this is that the Jets have the Ravens week 1, and so if anything, they already know they play the Ravens, and they're probably going to be one of the best, if not the best, running teams that they play all season long. So they better be coaching, right? Like they got to be teaching. It's not
Yeah.
just having the players on the field, it's also coaching and teaching. And so maybe it doesn't pan out week 1 regarding stopping the run, but long term, I'm hoping that these guys get it figured out. And so I guess that's one of my big things is that I'm pointing to is this coaching staff, excuse me, specifically Saleh and Ulbrich, really getting these guys to play the scheme the way they expect them to play it. And, I don't know if you mentioned Jordan Whitehead. I think he's definitely in the mix
Right.
to help to slow down that running game. So yeah, that's where my head's at. And I don't know. I don't know what kind of expectation I can have without seeing them do it on the field first, at least in one game. But yeah, that's where my head's at. I think that they do need to improve. I think if they don't improve, that alone could cost
Yeah,
Ulbrich his
that's
job, as if we're not playing even just like even if there's just a couple of games where we are able to slow the run down a little bit. I feel like that we don't have any games from last year that we can point to where we can say, oh yeah, like we held up strong in the running game. It just didn't really happen.
oh
Even
no.
the even the game sorry,
No, it's okay.
even the game versus the Titans, where it felt like we stopped Derrick Henry and he still had like 150 yards or something,
He did.
which is
Um,
mind-boggling. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to kind of add, to your point, like about the coaching, right? And Quinnen Williams, he rookie year was the 3-4, and then he goes over to the 4-3. I mean, the biggest difference, when you're talking about stopping the run in terms of the front is, like gap responsibility, right? If you're in that 3-4, you only have three defensive linemen there. Usually it's a more of a read and react type of situation because you're almost responsible. You really are responsible for two gaps instead of one. And when you have the 4-3, you can really kind of play with your hair on fire a little bit more. You're only responsible for one gap. But you go back to that Colts game, and like they took that like almost a little bit too literal in a sense, to where it was like they were, the Colts were taking advantage of the aggressiveness. They were running the traps, they were running the counters, and all of a sudden, Foley Farukasi's running up the field and he didn't do anything. He turns around and the offensive lineman got to the second level so fast that Jonathan Taylor was just like, I'm back at I'm back at Wisconsin or whatever. I believe he went to Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
John Taylor went to Wisconsin. Yeah, he's probably like, oh, this is Wisconsin playing Purdue or whatever it is, because it was just so easy for them because they weren't reading, they weren't they were being too aggressive and not really reading the the keys that they were supposed to, and they just got gashed. So that type of stuff needs to improve, right? You can understand when maybe you don't have the talent to compete, but you need to see guys not running around like chickens without a head. They don't know where they're supposed to be. Then you get into the point where, okay, they're not being coached up like they should be at to a degree.
Good stuff. Christy Marie throws in a question. She says, I'm not a fan of Ulbrich. You are amongst many other fans, so don't feel alone. There are a lot of people that don't like him. She says, what promise has he shown as a play caller? The only thing I can recall, was when he was named the defensive coordinator for the Falcons.
Yeah.
He he did a pretty good job of getting those guys to play better than what they had prior to him being named defensive coordinator. And the game that always comes to my mind is when they went to Arrowhead and they almost won the football game. And it was a low scoring affair. I don't remember the score exactly, but they held the Chiefs to, I think it was like under 24 points. So he has the ability. And I think that a lot of this is, he needs better personnel, and I think that they certainly added to the defensive side of the football.
Hmm.
They cannot be last place. I think we all agree they cannot
Yeah.
be at the bottom of the barrel again, and that will cost him his job. If we're in the bottom five again defensively, I don't think he's sticking around. I did not. That was not something that you heard me say last year. Even as bad as it got, I never thought that any of our coaches were going anywhere. But if it returns and if we're playing, embarrassing football defensively, he will be fired.
Yeah.
Sky Pilot also mentions that Nate Shepard and Jonathan Marshall have to step up. I think that's a great point to make. We still don't really know anything about Jonathan Marshall. Maybe this guy
Right.
comes in and he can contribute. I've been saying his name off and on, like he's just this forgotten guy that we haven't even really gotten to see him play football. Hopefully he can contribute. I think that's a great point to make, Sky Pilot. Thanks for throwing that in the chat. Let's see here. Ulbrich is the fall guy. We need him in case something goes wrong. That's a funny comment. Yeah, I guess he could be that sacrificial lamb. We'll see, though. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about what will happen, um, if things go poorly. But I am expecting things to improve. It's just a question of how much we're we going to see it improve. All right, let's move. Yeah, no,
All right.
we're not trying to be negative. I think that we all are optimistic. I think the question is, what can we expect run defensively?
Yeah.
We're looking at it from the perspective of they added to this defense, but it wasn't necessarily with a ton of run stopping
Mhm.
players. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. Don't worry. NY Just Florida, I appreciate you. All right, let's go ahead. Let's go to the final topic of the night, and then we'll leave it to you guys to give us some more. Don't worry about it. I don't think it's. Oh, okay.
No.
No, you weren't being negative, and he says he was mostly referring to the chat. No worries. It doesn't matter. You can criticize me. I've said it a million times. I feel like you guys don't come after me enough. I feel like I need more. I need more of that. All right, we'll go to the last topic, and then it's going to be you guys exclusively for the rest of the night. So Braxton Berrios is right now looking to be either wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5. He was wide receiver 1 in some circumstances last year. They get him back. They get him back for 2 years, and knowing what we know with Mims potentially on that bubble,
Yes.
even if he ends up as wide receiver 5. I heard a comment today that Salah said they're trying to figure out who the slot guy is going to be.
Mhm.
And I think the answer is pretty clear if you ask me. I think it's Berrios. And I guess we'll play the game. I have the little emoji on the screen, red, red, yellow, green. What's your level of expectation? Green does not have to be like, 1,000-yard expectations, but like what are you expecting from Berrios in 2022?
Yeah, I thought about this one, and I think it's pretty similar to what we got last year from him. If that makes sense, I think what you're expecting, yeah, he's no doubt about it, a slot guy. He's also that gadget player, right? Mike LaFleur likes to get creative. Braxton Berrios can do certain things for him that maybe you're not going to do with Corey Davis, right, or Denzel Mims, or maybe even Garrett Wilson. You may do some things with Elijah Moore for sure. But Braxton Berrios gives you kind of that guy that you can put in certain situations, whether it's the jet motions, the sweeps, but you can also rely on him to be that short route runner or that over that middle kind of guy, and not over the middle in terms of, he's an outside wide receiver running a dig, that's going to, take on a hit from a safety. But he is one of those guys, if you put him in the slot and he does get matched up where there's a zone, his own defense. Maybe he gets behind a linebacker and then he has the ability. I think we saw it maybe in the Raiders game when Sam Darnold was the quarterback. He almost had that long, maybe like 70 something yard touchdown. And I can't remember which game it was last year, that he took that really short catch over he ran kind of like a curl right over the middle, sat in the zone on a linebacker, turned it and gained probably about like 40 or 50 or so. So he's that guy that one gadget, two slot, three comfortable with Zach if he needs something, something quick towards that pylon like we saw. But then also we want him to be just as good as he was last year on special teams, because that's going to be a big part of this team, right? I mean, they have to do better, and not to get on a tangent about not regarding Braxton Berrios, but they have to do a whole lot better with field position than they did last year. It can't be, hey, we're going to take this, we're going to take this kick return out and we're going to have a 10-yard penalty and we're going to be starting from our own 11-yard line, once or twice a game. They got to work on the field position, and we're going to be counting on Braxton Berrios to be the all-pro returner that he was last year. And so I think it's a lot of the same that we saw last year. He's that fourth guy, hopefully, because we have the three guys ahead of him and they all stay healthy. But I think he's going to be a really a comfortable piece for Zach Wilson to work around.
Yeah, I think that the fact that Zach spends so much time around him, I think it's a sign that he is very, very comfortable, not just relationship wise. I think he enjoys and trusts him, playing football with Braxton Berrios. There's a comment in the chat. I kind of feel like this might be the case. I think Berrios, I'm not suggesting, not suggesting he's going to be the 1,000-yard wide receiver by any means, and I don't think even really anything close to that. But I do think that they are going to involve him quite a bit this season, and it's going to be one of those scenarios where they will put the ball in his hands and let him make plays. Trying to think of the best way to phrase this. I think he's going to beat out Mims for opportunities. I think he's going to beat Mims out for getting on the football field, and I'm still hopeful for Mims. I'm not saying that to be mean. I think that Berrios has clearly not only in favor of Zach, but also with the regime. Mm-hmm. And you pointed out a couple of plays. It doesn't take a lot of space for him. He is very explosive. Yep. And so yards after the catch are a thing that is something that he excels at. And somebody had mentioned, I think it was Jupacabra, that Moore is going to be in the slot. Of course, Moore is definitely going to play in the slot. Mm-hmm. But there are going to be some circumstances where Moore is on the outside. And I think that in those circumstances, I think Berrios is definitely going to get in the mix there in the slot. And they're going to rotate these wide receivers. That's the case with every football team. It doesn't matter how good your top three wide receivers are. They rotate, they play them. I see a scenario where, Berrios could even be competing, with Corey Davis if he does not kick it up a notch. Yep. Berrios has not ever let us down in any opportunity that he's been given. He has made a play. And so I'm not trying to make this into a Berrios love fest or hyping him up to more than what he really is. But I think that he's going to be a really good football player, even if it is as wide receiver number 4. Mm-hmm. And I think that he's clearly in that wide receiver 4 conversation. I think that, Moore is well ahead of him. I think that even the rookie Garrett Wilson's well ahead of him. And I still trust Davis to have a big bounce back year. So I think all in all, we should be excited that Berrios is on the team and he is the clear wide receiver 4, in my opinion. Sure. And I think that, again, you just go back to, when has he ever not, held up his end of the bargain? Berrios, I'm talking about. Penalties are not an issue. Sure. He makes big plays, excuse me, in the opportunities that he gets. So, okay, Berrios has let us down once with an INT that went off of his hands. I don't remember that play, but I trust you, Vern. I believe you. I'll say this then. He has very rarely let us down.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to make he's going to make mistakes. That's just how it's going to be. But as long as it doesn't happen a high percentage of times, then that's good for us.
All right. So, with that being said, we are going to wrap up the show here. But if you want to throw in a couple more comments or questions, I will read them and I will ask, I'll ask James what he thinks. Sky Pilot has a question here. He says, "What's the word on Cager?"
I
I
think he's a
haven't heard.
tight end now, right?
Yeah, he's a tight end. He bulked up pretty big actually in the off season. He's gonna have an uphill battle to make the team. What would you say regarding? I mean, that's kind of obvious, but even like to make the practice squad, I think he's gonna have a tough time. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's, hope the best for him. But yeah, I mean, that's a really difficult transition to make, wide receiver to a tight end, especially when he didn't. He was a tall guy. I don't know his height, but I know he was on the taller end.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, he's a big dude.
but it never seemed like he had the body type to put on that weight. That it's got to be a grind for him to maybe even hold that weight, especially during the season when you're playing like that. I hope it works out for him. I just don't know, given the fact that we just paid two tight ends and drafted one in the third round, that it's going to work for him here at the tight end position.
Christy Marie is a savage with her comments lately. She says Braxton Berrios has a Lego haircut. And what she means is like the little like swirly on the side. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that. Yep.
Yeah, I'll say this. Cager is gonna have to compete with Yaboa for
Yeah.
that fourth tight end spot. And there might even be guys competing for that fourth tight end spot that we're not expecting. Um who is the fullback tight Wesco? Wesco's still in the mix. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I think that he's somebody that people are kind of overlooking as far as a potential fourth tight end or fullback that we keep on the roster. So I think that, like I said, the deck is stacked, not in Cager's favor to make this
Yeah.
football team. He's gonna have to really show out to have a shot. So if you're asking me right now, he's pretty much not gonna make this team.
That's correct.
Um, Edward Stewart, he says, with Uzama with a minor injury, if he ain't ready to go, Tyler Conklin will start. Definitely.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think that it doesn't even really matter who's named the starter at tight end, Conklin or Uzama. They're both going to be not necessarily interchangeable in their roles because they will play a different role. I think that Uzama is clearly the chess piece, the versatile tight end that can be moved around the formation, whereas Conklin is more in line. But I think that, they are going to play a pretty even split of snaps. And so you're right. I think that, if one goes down, the other is going to play for sure.
Yeah.
and then you get to see Ruckert get in there and make it a little bit of an ugly football game. Um, let's see here. With the way wide receivers are now being paid, Mims will be super motivated and will hope to earn a shot at that life-changing money. I think if you're not motivated to make money in the NFL, you're mistaken. You are foolish. You can make that money anywhere. I mean, I guess I hear what you're saying that the money is certainly there right now at wide receiver, but he should have already been motivated in my opinion to make that money. So anyway, let's see here. Wesco is going to have to show up as well. Would really like to see as a fullback. Yeah, we do need our version of a Kyle Juszczyk. Who's the guy that the Ravens have? I can never remember his friggin' name. Do you know who it is? I can't remember.
Uh, uh, Pat Richard. Pat Richard. Is that Pat Richard? Pat Richard.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's Richard. Yeah,
Ricard. Yeah, Ricard. Richard. Something like
yeah,
that. He's really good.
yeah. He's good. Exactly. Um, the good news is that good players are now getting cut. Testament to the Jets' improvement. Agreed on that one for sure. Vern says Wesco's going to get cut. Better be motivated in life in general. Thanks for the stream. Appreciate that, NY Jets Florida. Pat Ricard. All right. I think that's going
Yeah,
to
there
do
you
it.
go.
Not too many questions in the comments right now. So, again, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, for supporting. I have, oh, good Lord, he's 308 pounds. Gee, many
Is he
Christmas.
really?
I don't know if that's true. Aaron Butler is a
No.
Ravens fan. So,
Holy moly.
if I'm speaking wrong, I do apologize. That would be unheard of at the fullback position. That would be like a
Massive.
defensive tackle playing a fullback. Um, Anyway, thank you guys so much for all the support. I actually have tomorrow off, so I'm planning to make a
Nice.
video for the first time in a few weeks. So,
Nice.
uh, thank you guys so much. James, anything you want to finish off the show with?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a fun week one matchup. I've been following the chat here with Aaron Butler going back and forth, and Aaron, you're no doubt you're right that it's going to be a very difficult matchup for these Jets here to try to win that football game. I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan, just as a football fan in general. You could scheme, you could do whatever you want. Ultimately, you have to try to find a way to get that guy to the ground. He's one of the better athletes we've probably ever seen play football in the NFL, in my opinion. And probably the biggest, the second biggest worry there is that secondary in Baltimore is now Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, and Marcus Peters.
Kyle
So you
Hamilton.
got
Did
to,
you say Kyle Hamilton?
yeah, Kyle Hamilton. Yeah. So it's not only just going to be trying to stop Lamar, it's going to be making sure we take care of the football, and both are going to be really difficult tasks. So I've been following the back and forth here. I don't think anyone's wrong. Jets fans, we have faith in our team, even if it's blind faith. And the Baltimore Ravens are a really good organization and going to be a really good team this year. So
Well, and I'll say this: I think Aaron Butler is stuck around because we aren't, completely biased. He is a Ravens fan. He's been watching the show
yeah.
since I made that video breaking down week one. So I think that's a credit to us. Anyway, thank you, Jets fans, and thank you anybody who's watching the show. Really appreciate the support, guys. Have an awesome night, and we will see you, or I will see you on Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching. Go Jets. See you next time. Word from my daughter, and